Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Good morning. Well, it's another Saturday morning, and it got cold this morning, as a matter of fact. It's Saturday, March the 7th, and we are going to be talking to our favorite celebrity author, and it's Darwin Porter, and he's in New York, and I wonder how cold it is up there, Darwin.
It is quite livable, although once this year, and New York has had the warmest weather in its history, but once this year, the Antarctica was 3 degrees more than New York City, 65 degrees in the Antarctica. Someone said if you live long enough, you'll see everything. Well, that's everything.
Yeah, you're right. That's not a good thing, and I did see where some big pieces of the icebergs are melting. They equate some of it as large as some of the small states. Not a good thing.
The Titanic again. The Titanic is buried, but it would sink it again. Anyway,
yeah.
It's an honor and a privilege to talk to you in the dying hours of Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, that's
congratulations.
true.
We made it through most of another winter, and beginning tomorrow is another day, which, by the way, I stole that. That was the original title of Gone with the Wind.
Oh, yes, I remember. That's right. Oh, yeah, that was some movie. Let me ask you, though, and I know I just read, I was very fascinated by your article that's coming up in our March issue, the fighter pilot who was just an amazing guy. I didn't know anything about him, Paul Farnes, and it's a wonderful article when people get the magazine. You know, you are something else. You come up with such unusual people. It's so nice. Do you just sit there all day thinking about who's the next person you can write for Boomer Times?
Well, I'll tell you, listen, if you travel the world for 50 years, you meet everybody, and I was honored to have met him. He's a great hero, and, you know, the RAF really faced formidable odds against those evil forces.
Yes.
Hitler. Oh, God.
I wish we had gotten him on our radio show before he passed away.
Yeah, he's a wonderful man. I'm honored to have known him, which leads into I'm also honored to have met and befriended in the final months of her life a grand lady. She arrived here with TV crew to make a pilot for the fall series, and she's got thousands and thousands of fans, and her name is Lynn Cohen. And she was one of the stars of Sex and the City.
Which one? Who did she play? Because I love that film. I mean, that TV series.
Yeah, and it ran from 1998 to 2004. And first, she won my heart when she arrived to do this film, which was a pilot, which means they shop a pilot hoping that someone will buy it for a fall series. And first she endeared me. She said, "I've read 5 of your books."
Oh, wow.
That is a way to win my heart.
Yes.
And she had some marvel. The news of her death, she actually died on February 14th of this year.
Who was she in the series? I don't remember.
What's that? Magda, they call it. Magda.
Yes.
And, she was the maid. But the glorious thing about this woman, she told me, she almost had inspiration for all of us, because she told me she was in her 50s when she decided to become an actress. And usually in Hollywood, unless you're Betty Davis or Joan Crawford, by the time you're in your 50s, like Arlene Dahl and hundreds of others, they sort of send you off to the pasture. But she just began her career, and it was spectacular. She worked constantly. For example, last year, she appeared in 6 movies alone, and she was 85. So I admired that. my favorite of her movies was called Munich in 2005, where she played Golda Meir, the
Yes.
former prime minister of Israel. And, of course, it was the atrocious sacrifice of those wonderful Israeli athletes at the Olympic Games. I'm sure most of the people listening to us are familiar with that story.
Yes.
And she was brilliant as Golda Meir. In fact, I think she looked a little bit like her.
Huh.
Now, I don't mean to denigrate from the ultimate Golda Meir, who was played by Ingrid Bergman in 1982. It was called The World of Golda. And Ingrid Bergman was eaten up with cancer as she made the movie. So these two fine women have done Golda a great service and wonderful. But here's the point that I was making about Lynn, a fine, fine woman. She was Jewish and born in Kansas City, Missouri. And then she just decided that 50 or 55 or 65 is just too young to retire. And she suggested that baby boomers and everyone don't sit around watching TV too soon, but sort of get out there, get involved. And she admired how that I had gone from one profession, which sort of ended, which is the travel book. You know, people quit buying travel books. Well, they still do, but in very limited way. And I found another career as a biographer.
Oh, I mean, that's some career. I think that even though the other was very exciting, this is really the place where you've made your mark.
And exactly. But now that is my lead-in to my next subject. First, I have to preface it by saying I now have something in common with Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. I never thought I'd see that day. And the Speaker Pelosi has called him the Grim Reaper because he has bills in his desk that he won't put on the floor. But now they're posting everything on the web, and I have now been called the Grim Reaper. And if this is a coincidence of coincidences, every biographer, well, I've written political live people, but every Hollywood biographer I wrote was of a person now dead. I believe that, like the New York Times said, you can't really write an honest biography of someone while they're alive because they'll sue you. But I wrote 3 biographies of people, entertainers, alive, and apparently all 3 of them were reading my book about them when they died. Now, they were Kirk Douglas, Nancy Reagan, and Michael Jackson. That is a coincidence beyond belief. I mean, Kirk Douglas, as we know, just died. I'm sure Florida papers carried that news.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And would you know he would be 104 years old this December? And now the only star of the golden age left, and they're the same age, is Olivia de Havilland, who immortalized herself as Melanie in Gone with the Wind. And Kirk was, I'm not sure that he read the book. I think someone was reading the book to him. His royal wife, Anne, is 100 years old, and I didn't think he would make it, but, you know, because he had strokes and everything, and he survived them all, and he outlived Clark Gable, Tyrone. Someone had to be the last, so he was the last star. The one thing that amazed me about Kirk Douglas is, of all the stars of the golden age, he was the one that no one had ever written a biography of.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. He wrote his autobiography. I think I told you on one show what I think of Hollywood autobiographies.
Yes, you have.
They tell you what they want to hear. And now at the Reagan Library, they told me that Nancy Reagan had my book by her bedside when she died. Now, I don't think my book killed her, but if you were Nancy Reagan...
You're funny.
If Well, you advised me to wait until she died, which was really good advice, but the people who put up the money had a different idea. And I wrote this book called Love Triangle, which was about the young days of Nancy Reagan and Reagan's first wife, Jane Wyman. And I wrote all about Nancy's pre-Reagan life, her affair with Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy and all these people. And at the age of 94, I was hoping Nancy would remember those glory days favorably. And I couldn't believe it. So I wrote about Michael Jackson, his rise and fall, the social and sexual history of Michael Jackson. And the Los Angeles bookstore said 25 copies were delivered to his address, and he died at the age of 50. Now, wouldn't you say this is an incredible coincidence?
Yes. But, I just have to say, you said something. So you said this woman, I forget now what you call Matilda, not Matilda, the lady who's...
Magda?
Yeah, Magda. She started at, you said, 50s, and her 50s. So maybe it's not too late for me.
Yes, right. Well, it was amazing. She got that kind of work. And I mean, just imagine at 85, 6 movies. Very few people today get offered 6 movies in a row. But before I change this up, I just want to add one thing. This was a pilot I wanted to see because it was a love story. In a flashback, it began. A man and woman met in their 20s. They fell in love, but life sort of lured them down a different trail, and they had failed marriages and everything. And then they meet again, and they're in their 80s, and they realize that the love of their life, it was each other. And so they got together at the end of their life to experience what they could have done had their heads been screwed on better when they were in and I thought it was a very, very tender love story of people in their 80s. And
that is lovely. That's lovely.
And I'm sorry that she wasn't around for a while. Now, on another subject, I want to tell you my vested interest in the Academy Award ceremonies.
Okay.
Because, as you know, I'm doing what I hope will be the seminal final book maybe ever written on the great Judy Garland.
Yes.
And I was, of course, naturally, I was rooting for Renee Zellweger to win for the movie Judy.
Right.
And she did.
Yes.
And I am delighted. And I'll tell you, just as I'm coming to the close of the Judy book, I'm traumatized. I have never in all my life gone through such trauma. And the thing about Judy is so much of her life, it's been gone over. Books have been published and everything, but it was as late as 2015 that new revelations have come out about her. And I'm presenting a life somewhat different and a little bit shocking from what's been told about her. For example, her favorite song was The Man That Got Away. And on the back cover, our publisher and your friend Danforth Prince has run beautiful headshots of the men she loved and lost. And I'll just throw out one, for example, not normally associated with Judy, Yul Brynner.
Really?
And his son, Rock, like Rock Hudson, his son, Rock Brynner, told me that Judy was the love of his father's life. And
so what happened?
And then, well, they, movie star love. He got away. Marlene Dietrich came along. And, for example, after he divorced Rita Hayworth, Prince Ali Khan, a famous tabloid name of yesterday, had an on and off affair with Judy that lasted for many years. But anyway, some of them are on the back cover, and they'll really surprise you, some of her choices. So there was another vested interest I have in the Academy. I have 6 weeks to make a decision about I won't say my next book. The publishing industry is insane these days. My next book is Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
Right. I think you told me that, and that's going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. The name of it is They Weren't Lucy and Ricky Ricardo. But that's all over the web already, the cover of the Lucille Ball book. I cannot believe we were searching for some sites the other day, and the cover of the Lucille Ball and Desi book kept popping up all over the place. It's a new day out there.
Yes, well, you're getting younger every day because of what you're doing, I think. You do really something that is rare, and you do it so well, and you do it in an enormous way. I don't understand how I can receive a book with 500 pages or more, the way you put these out. I know that you have a lot of resources. I know that Danforth is fantastic, but how do you do this day after day after day, Darwin?
Well, it certainly motivates me, and also I can do it because I traveled the world for 50 years, and for example, Judy, I faced 27 overflowing boxes of material that I had gathered ever since I first met her on Miami Beach in 1950.
My goodness.
So I couldn't do. Of course, the people would be dead today, so it's good that I did that research. But another thing at the Academy that I wanted to mention. Now, okay, the Lucille Ball, they're taking orders. But I just got a notice, or rather Danforth Prince got a notice, that they want the title and the cover of my next book, Beyond Ball, in 6 weeks. And they said that to do so, to get into the catalogs in North America, like book catalogs, we have to have that deadline. So I had done so well with my mother-daughter book, like Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds,
yes,
that I came up with the idea to do a book on Jane Fonda and Henry Fonda.
Oh, that will be spectacular. I know that they had quite a daughter-father relationship. It was strange, but she is one hell of a woman, isn't she?
Well, she's amazing, and you won't believe it, but if you've seen some news photos lately, she's been arrested again she was arrested during the Vietnam protests when she was called Hanoi Jane, but she's been arrested now with demonstrators for protesting climate change.
Yes, I've seen that.
You see?
Yeah, she goes in for one night, and she's really, so where did she get that fervor for all sorts of proposals that she believes in so much that if it isn't one thing, it's another, and she's got the guts to go out and do it.
Well, she didn't get it from her father.
See, I don't know anything about him, really.
Yeah, he was very shy. In fact, and a great deal of the book is the conflict that they had. Of course, Peter Fonda, his son, and her brother recently died.
Yes, I did. I saw that. I wondered why.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They didn't announce the cause, but we don't know. But it wasn't an accident. It was a natural death. Mm-hmm. But the wonderful thing about the book that will end is finally father and daughter come together when they did that wonderful movie in Golden Pond.
Right.
With Katharine Hepburn and Jane was in, and it was a wonderful farewell to her father.
And it was true. They can't. That's what the movie was, but it actually did that. Yes.
And Jane really wanted, and father and daughter came together at the end, and it's sort of a beautiful story. But both of them had very, very rough lives. Yet the reason I can't commit. I really am the Grim Reaper. The company wants to hold off until the last minute because a legend might die.
So then you'd have to do that. But you can't help that. I mean, listen, you got to commit, right?
Well, if I want to get in those catalogs, and, if you're not in those catalogs, you really lose a lot of sales.
Oh, really?
So yeah, there are tons of those catalogs. They had to, but it's so wild to be talking about another book when I haven't written about the Ricardo.
That's going to be a very interesting book, isn't it? So I know that, of course, she passed away. And when did he pass away? Also,
No,
Ricky.
He passed away actually he couldn't accept the awards, when in Golden Pond.
Yeah.
And
no, I don't mean that. I was talking about Ricky Ricardo.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot the exact date of his death. Both he and Lucy are dead.
I know, right?
But they live, fairly. I wanted them to live another 25 years.
But they have children. They have children, right?
Yeah, they have a son and a daughter, and Desi Arnaz Jr. is now living in Las Vegas with his wife. And yeah, it was 1986. I couldn't remember whether it was 86 or 87. I've got so many stars in my head, and it's getting hard to remember. But the one thing I want to say about Jane Fonda, I remember at an Academy Award. Yeah, Lucille Ball died in '89, so she outlived him by 2 years. But at the Academy Award, Jane Fonda was called upon to present the Best Picture Award of the year, and she was. I remember once when her name was mentioned at the Academy Awards, she got nothing but boos, and she came out and she got a standing ovation. She's 82 years old. She had a silver and scarlet dress on.
I saw this. I saw her. She was fantastic.
She looked gorgeous.
Yep.
I mean, of course, if you're a multimillionaire,
right?
That's what someone said. If you have all the money in the world, you can look gorgeous. But she had that natural beauty, and I don't want to sound too weak, but I almost shed a tear to see how people's opinion of one can change over the years.
Yes.
And so instead of the boos, they rose to their feet because she was a great actress. I really have all this material on the Fondas, and I would really love to tell their story. And if I live, I will. And so
of course you're going to live. You always say that. Stop doing that. Because when you say that, it makes me think about me since we're the same age.
Yeah, well, we're the same age as Robert Redford and Jane Fonda.
I love that movie they were in together. I loved that.
I love Robert Redford.
I do
think
too.
He's wonderful, but I'll tell you, he and Jane Fonda, if you ran pictures of the two of them, you know who would win the beauty prize.
Of course.
It's so funny how people age. Like Janet Leigh was a very beautiful woman, but some skin, I guess, you age premature. You would know much more about
yes,
that
there's
than
just,
I do.
well, whatever happens, I know. It's a different thing with, my mother had skin, and she died when she's 94, and she still had hardly any wrinkles. It was just the quality of her, the skin, I guess, from her genes. I don't know. And
then I've met 46-year-old women who look like 20 years older.
Yeah, I know that.
And all of those ladies I used to run around, they were in their 75, 80 in New York, those old actresses that I went with, but I didn't consider them old. Often when we arrived at a gala or something, they were the most beautiful and best-dressed women there. So it's I believe in carrying on. I really do.
I know. Let me tell you a little something about Jane Fonda that I think you knew, but I don't know. I actually interviewed her probably about 5, 6, I don't know how many years ago, because she came out with she came out with the new exercise stuff, and I had a chance to ask her why that wonderful marriage of her didn't last, and she just said because he, I guess in a sense, wanted to possess her. He wanted her with him all the time, and she had other ideas. It was too bad, because I thought that was a very good, could have been a wonderful relationship. Anyway, we're almost out of time. Do you know that?
That you don't own Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda is one of the most incredible independent women, and actually she's led a fantastic life.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
It caused horror to her father, but
well, it's funny. I just saw Miss Saigon, and I realized now a lot of things and why she did what she did, because I had forgotten all that. But anyway, we're almost out of time, my friend. You are the most wonderful guy, and I'm going to call you and have a conversation with you anyway, because I'd like to do that off the air. But I really appreciate the articles. I appreciate you. I miss you. It would be so nice to just chat and see what's really going on. But say hello to Danforth, will you please, for me?
I will, but I want you to know that I have had dozens and dozens of imaginary conversations with you. I should tell.
I know. I also.
We need to get together and tear down everybody and build up some.
Yes, I agree with you. Well, Darwin, you're really the light of my life in many ways. You and Danforth, you're very special. I don't think I have anybody that is I don't think that are like you. And it's been a joy, and I want you to just keep writing those books and don't ever talk about not going, that not being here with me. I would miss you too much. Don't do that.
Well, one thing, the year 2020 will live in history.
Good. And we're going to be there doing it.
Okay,
Thank you, darling. It was great. Bye.